Live from the Four Aces Studios, Four Aces Presents brings to you West Coast Bias.
The following Four Aces production is for mature audiences only. Listener discretion is highly advised.
Hey y'all, what is up? Your eyes do not deceive you, and neither do your ears. West Coast Bias is back. Man, I felt like this was just the best time. I'm here with Abdul, the Doual, and Miss Heather, and we got some shit to talk about. Yeah, we do. We got some shit to talk about.
Fucking world is going down in flames.
Like, we won't get into the details. Like, if you've been on Facebook or turned on the news cycle, you know what the two biggest stories in the U.S. right now is with the Jacob Blake shooting. Now, when I mean major stories, what I mean is those that are getting the most responses, not necessarily those that are getting the most attention. Because you do have the whole Save Our Children movement, and that's a whole other thing that we can get to in another episode. But you see a lot with the Jacob Blake shooting, and you see a lot with this Kyle Rittenhouse kid. And the bottom line is that everybody has a way that they feel about it. So we don't really need to get into the details of that. But the Rittenhouse thing is off to the side. That's the Blake shooting is what has had the most impact in the sense that we've had NBA, NHL, even though I think NHL was late to the party. Y'all can comment on that in a second. And MLB games canceled or protested or postponed to show protest for, which I'm liking what I'm seeing out of these athletes. So Heather, why don't you go ahead and kick us off with your thoughts on the boycotts and kind of what message is being sent by these grown men deciding not to play the game that they love so much.
It's about fucking time.
Yeah.
They have a platform, especially right now with the NBA, because we know that they were first to the party on this. They're usually first to the party on most of the things social justice wise. You have a lot of coaches like Pop and Kerr are the two probably most outspoken coaches against social injustice that we have in all of sports. They've taken some major flack, but they're also two white men at that, might I add, who have credit to back up every word that they're saying. Steve Kerr lost his father when he was in college, to senseless terrorism. Popovich was in the military. Both of them believe wholeheartedly in social justice. Both of them support their players 100%. Both of them have probably been fined by the NBA for being so outspoken about certain things. But I think it's about time, because now we see, although we saw, a couple years back, we saw a couple Oakland Athletics players kneeling.
Yeah.
But this is the first time that, and in the last time that NBA players threatened to boycott a the playoff game at that was with the Clippers' previous owner. And exactly. And, you know, the NBA far and wide, I mean, do I think that they can do better than what they're doing? Absolutely. And the players have challenged them just to do exactly that. The NBA has come out and said that they've promised a lot of stuff, and the players have said, you better be careful, because if you don't deliver, we're going to end up right back at boycotting and sitting and all of that. But it's about time that more people use their platform like Cap did.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to bring Cap back into this, but it's like, if these people had been doing this when Cap was doing it, one, Cap would still have a fucking job.
Yep.
And two, maybe we'd be a lot farther along than what we are right now. It shouldn't have had to take COVID. It shouldn't have had to take George Floyd. It shouldn't have had to take Ahmaud Arbery. It shouldn't have had to take Breonna Taylor, whose fucking murderers are still working.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't have had to take Jacob Blake. It shouldn't have had to take all of them for this discussion to finally feel like maybe it's going somewhere. And the fact that, don't let up now. Do not be assuaged by little tiny things here and there that are just meant to, okay, if we give them this, maybe they'll shut up and go on. We talked a long time ago about, was it even appropriate for the NBA to go on playing in the bubble given everything that's going on right now?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that question still stands to me. And it's like, it's going to take some, I'm glad that these conversations are happening. I'm glad that, you know, with as much as we all know that I can't fucking stand LeBron.
Got to give credit.
I've always said, as a man, as a human being, and as a role model, he is an amazing person, especially as a young black man. Well, I mean, he's not that young anymore, but to the younger generations of black children who need to see a man who is being the role model that he is. I'm not even going to get into his poor sportsmanship or the basketball or any of that, but just as a human being, I think that he's done the right thing. I think that they're all doing the right thing or trying to do the right thing. Do I think it's coming a little bit late? Absolutely. I think it's coming about 4 years too late. Where were all of them when Cap was doing this all by himself?
Yep.
You know, where were they after Ferguson? This is 4 years later, and we are still dealing with this.
Yep.
You know, I saw the meme, and I've seen it before, and I think we talked about it last time, but the quote from Chris Rock about the police department, where he says, I know being a cop is hard. I know that shit's dangerous. I know it's okay. I know it is, okay? Yeah. But some jobs can't have bad apples.
Exactly.
Some jobs, everybody got to be good, like pilots. You know, American Airlines can't be like, most of our pilots like to land. We just got a few bad apples that like to crash into mountains. Please bear with us.
You know, and there's a lot of truth to that, 100%.
There's 100% truth to that, because, and you'll hear me say, look, I work in a law enforcement environment every fucking day. I leave work half the time in tears because I see the inhumanity that goes on.
Yeah.
You know, I just saw a CO. Mind you, I work in a psychiatric inpatient program for those in the California Department of Corrections system. Okay? Yeah. These are people who have significant mental illnesses. And you have a CO that wants to sit there and go, fuck your mom this, fuck your mom that, N-word this, N-word that. And then be like, well, it's okay because they're both black, and we'll He started it. What are we, fucking 12? You're a CO. You need to be held to a higher standard. You need to be able to just brush it off, because inmates are going to say some stupid shit. But you know what? I've heard more COs say some out-of-pocket shit than I have my patients. So it's like, I live this shit every day. I see what happens in an environment where there are no fucking cameras. We are not allowed to have cell phones inside the institutions. They want to sit there and say that it's because of the patients, it's because of the inmates, and I hate using that word. Let's start using the word incarcerated person. Yeah. But we're not allowed to have them, let's be honest, because their shit would be, it would be blown out of the water even more than it is now. Don't even get me started on the freaking death sentence that they read to freaking 30 people at San Quentin, 2,000 COVID cases because they imported COVID into the prison.
Damn. Yeah,
but you know what? It doesn't matter because they're in prison, so they must deserve it, right? This is some fucked up bullshit.
That is.
All of this is. And so what a lot of people don't know is, so the Milwaukee Bucks have been doing a lot of work with Represent Justice. Represent Justice had a lot to do with launching the movie Just Mercy.
Okay.
Scott Budnick with One Community used to be the director of ARC. Everybody knows Scott Budnick because Scott Budnick produced the Hangover movies. Okay. And then after working with kids in the juvenile system, decided that he was going to step away from Hollywood and form the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. One, to get legislation to get these kids serving life sentences out of prison. Two, we worked on Prop 57. Three, just restructuring as it is. But so the Milwaukee Bucks are actually joining him on an Instagram Live tonight to talk about all of these problems that are going on, to talk about the boycott, to talk about George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Jacob. There's just too many to. Where does it stop? Like, it's so. I am so emotionally drained, but I keep fighting because, let's be honest, I grew up with I know I'm not fully white, I'm multiracial, but I know I look white, and I know because of that I grew up with certain privileges. So I can't sit here and complain about being exhausted by this, because you know what? There are people who live this every fucking day, and those are the people I'm going to sit here and I'm going to continue fighting for until my last goddamn breath.
Well, there you go. Like I say, no disagreements. Doual, your word on the boycotts and what these young men are doing by taking their moment in the sun and shining the light on somebody else or something else.
It's highly commendable and to be applauded, but it's just a step in the right direction. And I hate to put it in such a negative term, but I'm a realist. I live in reality, and the fact of the matter is that everything Heather was just describing, is everything that has been going on, not for just the past 4 years, not for just the past 20 years, for the past 4 years, but that is the foundation of America. That is the America that was built and that we stand and live in today. So
100%.
It's not a broken system. The system was made this way.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, to change a system that has been lifelong, for generations before us, is going to take a work and an effort that is beyond, one person or one group of people. You know what I'm saying? Or one generation of people. This is work for years and years and years to come. And so, I believe, that there is a place and a vision, that we can get to, the mountaintop, so to speak. But again, this is only a step in the right direction. And not only is it a step, but it's the same step that we've been taking, for the past 40, 50, 60 years, since the 1950s.
And I'll back that up, because I actually had a conversation with a young man and two young men on Facebook in one of my NBA groups, in which their whole thing was, I applaud the boycott, but what now? And I find that's a sentiment that a lot of people have.
Yeah.
Is what now? And I think one of my responses that, well, A, it got a lot of love, but B, I just felt it was one of my most poignant ones, is he was like basically all caps screaming at me like, well, what the hell does that do? What now? And I kind of fired back at him like this. I was like, look, young man, this is a time where these athletes, instead of entertaining us, are giving us a chance and an opportunity to stop staring at the tube, get up off our asses, go out and try to be the change that we want to see. Like, you ask what now? It's up to us now. They're taking their platform and getting the message out there. It's up to people like us at our level to try to make the change happen. It's up to us to vote out those senators, those congressmen, those and people like that, those presidents that don't have that that particular thought process in mind. It's up to us to go out and make these changes, and all that these players are doing is trying to wake up the people that are watching the game. I had a dude in one of my NBA groups that had me dying. He goes, I love this boycott. He goes, because this boycott has outed so many goddamn racists in this group. It's not even funny. Oh my God, they just came out the fucking woodwork, and I was just like, to an extent, you're right. Because I don't believe that everybody that is against it. I think some of these people are not necessarily racist, but they believe that they're coming from a good place and saying that, why should we mourn a bad guy, or what in their minds is a bad guy. And to an extent, I can understand from the thought process of, I'm not going to mourn the death of Thanos. Dude killed off half the universe. I'm not going to mourn his death. But
that goes back to what I was just talking about, people not being in an uproar about like the COVID and deaths in prison, because they look at them like, well, they're in prison, so they might as well be, they must be getting what they deserve, right?
Right.
Not even taking into account how many innocent people are actually in prison.
And they're human beings. Bad human beings.
They are human beings.
They weren't given a death sentence.
And 15 who died were actually given a death sentence, but that's a different story.
That's just kind of saving a little bit of money.
They're also like 80 years old.
Okay. So
they've been on death row for 10, 20, 30, 40 fucking years.
Yeah.
That's insane in itself. I've been on East Block. I know the conditions of East Block. I can understand why COVID ran through that place like nobody's fucking business. Yeah. And this was all approved by upper management.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that's having a really hard time not being cynical and thinking they did this shit on purpose. This was to clear out the population.
Yeah. And to move some people along. Because don't we have a stay on the death penalty here, though?
Yes, we do. As long as Newsom is as long as Newsom is governor, please not president, after the way he's handled all of this shit. As long as he's governor, there will not be another execution. Okay. However, in order to completely do away with the death penalty in this state, that has to be voted down by the citizens of the state of California.
Okay. Dude, what were you going to say there? Oh, sorry.
I was going to say that just, goes back to what I was saying.
Yeah.
That's America. That's the country we live in, where, people are who don't fit inside the box, or have done something to put themselves outside the box, or just black people or minorities in general are not viewed as human beings. We're viewed less than human. were viewed less than our lives are viewed worth less than the animal's life. So that's why it's so easy, for people to when we have a Jacob Blake or Trayvon Martin, let's even take it there. The poor young man was killed, shot to death for absolutely no reason other than being black in a white neighborhood.
Yep.
And then after his death,
and wanting a bag of Skittles.
Exactly. And then after his death, all this stuff comes out. Oh, well, he was a terrible kid in school, and he had drug paraphernalia in school, and everything negative. And he's only 17 years old. This is a 17-year-old young man that, of course, he made 17-year-old mistakes. He made 16-year-old mistakes. He did nothing outside of no other human, white, black, Mexican, or otherwise, and yet, because all of this happened, because there are people who are so against minorities, so racist, so inherently hateful in their heart, people who are a part of the system, who control and manipulate the system, the people who report our news, the people who do the investigation, they would rather report on all his negative history as opposed to a young black man being killed. Or on the flip side, where you have this Kyle Rittenhouse, again, these same hateful, hatred people come out to defend this young man. Why? He just took 2 lives, and from what I understand, there was another young man that lost his whole arm, and these aren't black people that he killed. Okay, all right. These are white Americans that stood
with Black America.
Black America.
Yep.
Okay, so what does that tell you? What that tells me is, no matter how many steps we take in the right direction, no matter how far we go or how far we've come, again, this is America. This is where we live. And while we call attention to it, and try to make change to it, it's no different from the slave on the plantation, telling the slave master, I want to be free.
Yep.
What the slave master is making too much money off the slave being in the prison system and continually being pushed in and out of the prison system. It's the slave master making money off the slaves in the cotton field, and continuously making sure that they get the lowest end of the cut, while the slave owners and the other property masters, this is nothing but modern day slavery. The difference is the slave is now controlled by the dollar bill. Racism is no longer black and white; it's green.
Yep.
Okay, let's start there. It's don't get me wrong. It's still black and white, but now it's green. And not only that, the plantation has been replaced by the warehouse. And so us, the common man,
or the prison.
Or the prison.
You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter if you're black, if you're white, Mexican, it doesn't matter. If you're under this money line, you understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
You're a slave.
Yep.
You feel me? And you're going to be viewed as nothing more than less than human. Now, let's also take into account that, again, this is America. And I'm just going to keep it real. This is the white man's country.
Oh, yeah.
So unless you are white, you are nothing less than that. So even if you're under that slave line, you know what I'm saying, being a Caucasian American gives you that advantage.
Yep.
It gives you that privilege.
Well, we said
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say we've talked about it before here, that there's this misconception with the phrase white privilege that it leads people to believe that means you had a good life or you had the best life, and it has nothing to do.
It couldn't be farther from the truth on that, and that is the one thing that I keep trying to scream from like the rooftops. Is the whole point of it is it's not negating somebody's struggle. We keep playing this. Who had it worse?
Oh,
nobody fucking wins that game.
Nobody does.
First of all, nobody wins that game. But secondly, what it's saying is it's not saying that you didn't struggle. It's saying your struggle would have been worse.
Uh-huh.
It's saying your struggle would have been different had you not been white. That is the privilege of being white.
Yep.
Things could have been worse.
Yep.
It's not saying you didn't struggle, you didn't work, you didn't, scrape by for everything you have. Because we know that that's true. I mean,
and that's
black people,
exactly.
people of color are not the only ones living in the ghetto. We're not the only ones living in low-income areas. We're not the only ones living in the projects. But what it's saying is that, you know what, if you're white, I bet you never went into a store and had an employee follow you because they thought you were going to steal something. That's what it's saying.
Well,
it's not negating your struggle. Yep. Exactly. And I fully admitted when I first got my new car and I got pulled over, I fully admitted I recognized what happened to me that day had a lot to do with white privilege. Because had I looked what I am, I would have gone away from that with a ticket in a heartbeat. I promise.
And it's the problem with that whole discussion is that it's something that you have to understand and believe to see. And I know that sounds weird because normally it's the other way around. You have to see it to understand it and believe it. But when it comes to something like that, you have to understand that it's like Abdul's saying, it's what our country is based on. Like the entire concept of this country was to lift up the white man. When our founding fathers got together and decided the direction that this country was going to go in, they did not have brown and black faces in their thoughts as far as what the head of this country was going to look like in the future. They didn't. And we just have to own that.
Meant we the white people.
It did. At the time in which it was written. Yes, we've tried to change the meaning to include everybody now. And for some people it does and for other people it doesn't. But when it was written, it had nothing to do with black and brown. It had nothing to do with black and brown. And
it was to ensure the generational wealth of the Caucasian American for years to come.
Exactly. And so at the end of the day, first the person has to understand and accept that before they can then see how racism is still alive.
It was a country built on stolen land by stolen people.
And so, it first, like I said, because even as a black man myself, it took me recognizing that before I began to see what racism really was. And that's experiencing it throughout my life. It still took me recognizing and realizing that, oh, this shit goes back beyond like even me, my ancestors, and my ancestors' ancestors.
Yeah.
Like this goes all the way back.
This goes back to before the Mayflower, kind of shit.
So because of that, I think when it comes to racism, the person who's combating for it, so to speak, even though they may not necessarily know. Like I said, I've told people, I was like, you don't have to necessarily be I hate all darkies to be racist. Like people don't understand that. Like people don't understand. People think like you have to be full on KKK hood, white dress wearing, like kill all the black people, like in order to be racist, and you don't. There's so many different levels to racism.
They're thinking of external biases. Too many things now are internal, implicit biases rather than explicit biases. Because at some point, people caught on with, okay, I might lose my job. It's outer-wise, it's not really, even though internally it's accepted, outwardly it's not really like they're not accepting it, but internally we still pat each other on the back. We wink, wink, nod, nod, know who each other is. But now it's more implicit bias than it is anything. And I think one of the best things that I've heard lately is it's not enough to not be racist. You must be anti-racist.
You must be willing to combat it because silence is participation just as much as doing it. I don't care what anybody says to me on that.
Silence is taking the side of the oppressor.
Right. When you deal with something like racism, there's a clear-cut line, and either you're on one side of it or you're not. And the people that try to play the middle ground are the people that upset me the most because I'm like, nah, this shouldn't be something. There's no middle ground to this. But I do understand when I tell people. I've told multiple of my friends, white and otherwise, look, just because you may not be a 24/7 KKK card wearing racist doesn't mean what you just said wasn't racist.
Right.
Like I think people lose the concept in that as well.
I always love when people are like, "I'm not racist. I have black friends. I'm not homophobic. I know somebody who's gay." Like, there couldn't be a more racist or homophobic thing to say. Like,
Pretty much.
Seriously.
Well,
it's just admit it. You have the first point of anything. You have to admit that there's a problem.
Okay, so for those of you who know me well, y'all know I watch The Big Bang Theory like religiously. Like I own all 12 seasons. I watch them over and over again. But there's an episode in it, right? And it's one of the only episodes, because I've heard people call that show racist, and like I can see it sort of, but there's only one episode where I completely like just got on and agreed with them. Because there's an episode where the character Penny is talking to the other two female characters, and she's like, and she calls Raj. Or what she said something about Raj being her Indian friend, and she was like that. And Bernadette goes, "That's wild. That's a little bit racist." And then Penny comes back around and goes, "My Indian friend," and she's like, she goes, "That's not racist." And Bernadette goes, "Yeah, that's even more racist." And she's like, "Why is that?" He's like, "Because you chose to call him your Indian friend." People, think about this shit. If you have to qualify your friend by the nationality that they are in the conversation, then you probably said some racist shit. Like seriously.
Like South Park, and it's like, oh, so I've got my token Indian friend over here. Like,
yes.
Seriously, no. Who does that? It's my friend. I don't
exactly.
It may be like my dumbass friend who like is on LeBron's nuts. I may identify someone that way, but
yes.
It's not gonna. No way, shape, or form is any way that I identify any of my friends going to be by their race.
Right.
It's not because I don't see their race,
yes.
Because I do, because I think that they're beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's because they're my friends. Period.
Well, no, there's only one time. There's only one time in which I qualify my friends by their color. If I have multiple friends of different races with the same name. Okay? I have a homeboy that I met.
I'll give you that one.
Now check this out.
That one.
But we're both named
Anthony,
Kevin.
White Anthony, black Anthony, Mexican
exactly.
Anthony, Asian Anthony. Okay, I get it. Yeah.
Now check this out, right? So me and Kev meet each other, and we're sitting up on the top of this building having this conversation. Like, all right, dude, how are we gonna identify ourselves? And I'm like, well, you're Kevin, I'm Kevin. I was like, I go tall Kevin. He's like, well, I'm not that much shorter than you. He's only about 4 or 5 inches shorter than me. I was like, all right. I was like, well, what's your last name? King. Well, shit, my last name's Kendrick. So it's not like they can call us by our last name. Damn. All right, fine then, dude. You're white Kev, I'm black Kev. He was like, all right, here's what it is. And from then on, that's what we was known as. That's what we referred to each other. We would refer to each other as that. We'd be like, yeah, you talk to Kevin, and people be like, yourself. No, white Kev. Have you talked to white Kev yet? so, but in that particular instance, it's okay. If you got multiple friends with the same name and they different nationality, okay. Like there's Indian Jason, there's black Jason, and then there's white Jason. I get it. But other than that, there's no reason to qualify the race of your friend when you speak about your friend. He's just your friend.
It's not. It's almost like you're trying way too hard to prove that, like, you have friends who aren't just white.
Right. And
so, if you feel like you have to try really hard to prove that,
and here's the thing
problem
about it,
there
is that the people that I see defending this Rittenhouse kid, I'm like, I know for a fact, 100%, and I hate to say this, but if the kid was black, they wouldn't be defending him as hard.
Nope. You're 100% right. They wouldn't be defending him at all. They'd be calling him a thug and telling him to be strung up. Come on.
Much. Like they would be, this kid's getting everything he's deserved.
Let's not beat around the bush about it.
This is white America protecting white America, or some portion, because the way I see it in my life is the longer I go, the more I see of white America turning on white America, and it's a beautiful thing sometimes. Like I've had more of my white friends go in on on some other white racists that I've seen throughout time than I have any other time in my life.
I've gotten to the point where I'm like, do not engage, do not engage, do not engage, because it is, and I have to get to the point sometimes, is like, if you have to argue with somebody this hard to get them, like, and show facts and show this and show that, like, I could come to you with like a 50 slide PowerPoint presentation, a freaking peer-reviewed journal article that was posted, and you're still not going to believe me. I need to just step away because all I'm going to do is drive myself crazy trying to get you to see, but you're not open-minded enough and humble enough to recognize, whoa, the beliefs and the things that I thought are wrong, but I can admit that.
Yeah. I've told people, I'll put it to you like this. I am one that I see both sides of the coin. Like I tell people. People talk to me about the riots and the protests, and I go, police brutality is bad in general. And trust me, I'm not protesting for some black dude who grabbed 2 9mm and decided to run at a group of cops in the hopes that one of them would kill him. I'm not protesting that dude. I'm sorry. Unless you're going to come and tell me he had some mental disorder that caused him to act that erratic and crazy, I'm not feeling too sorry for the dude. But I haven't seen that. When I see issues like Jacob Blake, okay, dude was carrying a knife and he was walking away from cops. There were 5 of them there, and one of him with like a knife with like a 5-inch blade. Really? 5 cops wearing riot gear or wearing full police gear, armor, carrying guns, tasers, and batons couldn't take down one 200-pound black dude? Really?
It's the same thing that happened in San Francisco just a couple years ago.
Like, I don't understand how you can even logically look at that situation and say they should have feared for their lives. Like, I just don't
see how you can't just take him out with the taser at that point if he's that much of a threat. Like, they need to stop automatically going to lethal means.
Yep. And maybe
and what needs to happen is they need to do away with qualified immunity.
Yes.
That shit got to go.
Yes. I said something to a friend of mine a while back where I said to him, because he was saying, it's this dude in this group. He was saying, no man, they, in that situation, it's split-second timing, and it doesn't matter what's on the line. Them cops still would have probably shot him. I was like, look, bro, I can guarantee you right now, if them cops knew that their pensions and their careers were on the line, they wouldn't have drawn that.
They were going to go to prison?
And they were going to go to prison? Like, trust me, I doubt he's pulling that trigger that quickly. So at the end of the day, no, it's a stupid excuse. It truly is. The fear for my life thing is a stupid excuse because you have every advantage in the situation. Unless you're going up against one of the criminals from the show Arrow and they have a full fucking arsenal and shit, you shouldn't be fearing for your life. And if you are, you shouldn't have a badge. If every time that you get in there you fear for your life, then drop the badge, go be a school teacher. Well, shit, that shit's dangerous now too. There's bullets flying all over schools too. So I don't know what to tell you. Go be a massage therapist. Light some fucking scented candles and have a fucking good time. If putting on a badge scares you that much. Because I'm sorry. I'm tired of hearing that. Go on, do it. Sorry.
And you know what? They know that going into that job. Yep. They know that it's going to be dangerous, and they choose to do it anyways. They need to be held at a higher standard than people. But when it comes to self-defense, in states that actually allow self-defense, it is way stricter than a cop's feeling of self-defense when they get in trouble, when they shoot somebody. So that makes no sense to me because they're more qualified to be able to supposed to not be that, crazy and on edge and scared for their lives. Whereas a regular citizen, would have every reason to fear for their life. Somebody breaks into their house or something like that. Yep. But they're held to a less strict standard when it comes to terms of self-defense.
Yeah, pretty much. What were you going to say, Doual?
Shit, I forgot. Go ahead.
No problem. But anyway, so the players, back to the NBA stuff again, because we can get sidetracked on that all day.
Right.
Back to the NBA stuff again. I thought the players, of course, the first domino to fall was Milwaukee. Now, I do agree with some that were like, dude, the other teams were kind of left with no choice because if you play after they make that statement, it basically makes you look like a jackass. And to an extent, I understand what they're saying. And to an extent, it's true. It kind of put the Blazers and the Lakers and all the rest of the teams that were supposed to play behind Milwaukee kind of at a like, okay, we kind of gotta follow suit. Because if we don't, we kind of look like a bunch of pricks.
If I'm not mistaken, it's Milwaukee that has the player who has a court case against the police currently.
Yeah.
Who was beaten and wrongfully detained and everything. So, I mean,
it makes sense.
They're really it's the front of this push. Just like I said, they're going to be on tonight. And they've done a lot as far as, like, they paid for all of their fans to watch Just Mercy when it came out. They did the version. They were the East Coast team that Represent Justice went and worked with, just like out here, Represent Justice went out to Folsom State Prison with the Kings and did all of that. That actually, those events were related.
Okay.
So, you know,
they're pushing it.
They really are out there. So this is something that they've believed in prior to this. A lot of it, they do have that player that happened to. And, I mean, also just it being in the vicinity of where they're at, they really had to lead this. Yeah. And it basically gives no one any other choice. Because anybody else who didn't follow suit after that is just going to look like, well, you know what they're going to look like.
Yeah. And do any words on that?
I mean, you know, they did the right thing. You know, it's they all got choices, and they chose to, you know, continue to call attention to, you know, this issue, especially it being, you know, happening not just close to home but in home.
Yeah.
You know, so for them to do that, to put their season on the line, because they could have Orlando could have very well taken the court and then took the W.
Yeah.
You know, but they decided that they didn't want to accept the forfeit.
Yeah.
You know, and as well, you know, like you said, those other teams could have played their games if they wanted to. But it was all about a choice, you know, and standing in solidarity. Because it's not just, you know, Milwaukee. But you look at all these NBA teams, not just the teams in the bubble, you know, but all the teams. And in each and every one of those cities, I guarantee you, maybe just 90% of those cities, I guarantee you can find an unarmed black man that was shot and killed by a police officer. No. But I can also guarantee you in all of those cities, if you look closely and you look, you know what I'm saying, deeply hard enough, you can find issues of the systemic racism and all these social injustice issues, you know, that people are talking about right now. You know, so it was important, you know what I'm saying, for those other teams, you know, to stand in solidarity, you know, with the Bucks. They didn't have to, you know, they wanted to. And I think that's the defining moment, you know, that we're all facing right now. And the question is, you know, what do you want to do? You know, do you want to continue to just go on with things as they have been, you know, or do you want to see change? And not only do you want to see change, but how are we going to go about, you know, taking action to make these changes, you know what I'm saying, come through?
And I'll give the NBA credit in one area. A lot of the NBA cities where they've had issues with polling places, etc. Even though I can tell you from having worked at the election polls office recently that everywhere is pretty, like Placer County is cutting down theirs from like 250 something last year to 28 polling centers this year, from 258 like precincts to 28 different voting centers, which are a little bit larger, but still. So I'm going to give a shout out real quick to anybody listening that's wondering about how or when they can vote. First and foremost, you can vote by mail, but if you don't feel comfortable with that, you can go to the polling places. You can go to your elections office, which you can look up online, your local elections office up to 30 days early, and go place your vote. You can get in there and you can ask for a ballot. If you're not registered, you can get registered, ask for a ballot, and vote right there, hand it over to a voting official, and your vote is counted. Bam, right there. You ain't got to worry about the mail-in vote. Ain't got to worry about none of that. But they're opening up their stadiums as voting centers.
Yeah, I saw that. That's pretty awesome.
So, Like the NBA is really putting their money where their mouth is right now. I'd like to say the MLB is doing the same, and if you listen to Evander Kane, he's a little bit pissed off with the NHL because he feels like they're not. So.
Well, I honestly feel that it took baseball a little longer than it should to have.
Well, the same night that the Bucks.
Up.
Yeah, I agree with that they should have stepped up long before, but they did that night. The same night that the Bucks did, they had like 3 or 4 baseball games that got canceled as well. The A's waited till the next night to do their protest game, and they actually did it 2 games in a row. They protested their game against Texas in Texas, and they protested their game against Houston. But
the Giants and the Dodgers boycotted that night.
Yeah, Giants and the Dodgers. So,
that's a pretty big game to boycott too, honestly.
It is.
So, I mean, that says a lot. And I'm not, honestly, like, the teams from California, I'm not surprised about their reaction.
Right.
Because, especially, like, the 3 major teams, and screw Anaheim, nobody really cares about them, but the three major teams in California are in 3 of the most diverse and ethnically diverse areas, and areas that are known for uprisings during these periods of time. I mean, Oakland, you've got the home of the Black Panthers.
Yeah.
LA, you've got all the stuff they've gone through and the riots, and then San Francisco, I mean, just social justice, and also home of the movement for our LGBTQ population. Yep. So I'm not surprised when California teams do things. It's because it's the populations that they serve in those areas tend to be a lot of the people who are making exactly.
Yeah.
But it's in areas like when you start getting like in the Bible Belt, and when you start getting into like Middle America, and those are when it starts to surprise me a bit, just because, you know, some of these areas are known for yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's good to see everybody. I just wish this would have happened sooner, and I hope that the momentum and I said this after the George Floyd protest started, and saying that I hope that this momentum that we have, that they don't let up. Yeah. And that there are going to be people and entities that come along with little tiny things that seem like good, you know, compromises, but they're just to assuage people. Yeah. It's not to really get any work done. So don't be sidetracked by those little tiny wins. Just keep pushing forward.
Yeah. And keep getting them little tiny wins. But all right.
Yeah.
So we're about halfway through, so let's go ahead and take that podcast promo break. We'll come back and we'll actually talk about some of the on-the-court stuff with the NBA playoffs on the next half of the show.
Dame.
You know.
Why Dame gotta do me like that, man?
You're listening to West Coast Buzz.
MVP of the bubble.
Who? LeBron James?
No, Damian Lillard.
Yeah.
He got bubble MVP.
Yeah, Dame.
See, you know, I gotta go for Portland, just because he's from Oakland. Plus, I mean, I graduated undergrad out of Portland, so.
Well, like all I can say is this: if he doesn't get hurt, I think that's a whole different series. But we'll get into that after the break. So, y'all listening to West Coast Bias. We'll be back here in a few minutes. Peace.
From the galactic depths of the comic book universe comes the ghosts of the stratosphere, ready to galvanize and energize your mind with the latest of comic book news and reviews. And why are you stopping me? Yes, that's much better. Hi, this is Andy Larson for Ghosts of the Stratosphere. Join me every week along with my co-hosts Rob Stewart and Chad Smith, as well as a cavalcade of fantastic comic book guests as we dish out heaping helpings of the greatest and latest of comic book news and reviews. New shows posted every Tuesday with bonus shows every first Friday of the month. You can find us on iTunes and Stitcher under Ghosts of the Stratosphere, as well as on our website www.gotstratosphere.com. Hope to see you soon, folks.
All right, guys. All right. Okay. Oh God.
Like, and it, like,
we're hold on.
like,
We're on air, y'all. Just so you know. If y'all got some bad neighbor stories, join us for it, because I know she got the mother load. Because I'll be seeing her Facebook post every fucking day about these people fucking vacuuming all damn day. How much do you need to vacuum a carpet, Daddy?
Well, and no, the craziest thing is that all but the 2 bedrooms in the apartment, everything is wood, or hard floors. So, and granted, yes, I have an area rug, but I don't feel the need to vacuum it like 5, 6, 7, 15 times a day. It's like, first of all, at first I thought it was like trimming season or something. Yeah. That they were up there freaking vacuuming because they were up there trimming. But man, no. And like, they're always trying to vacuum in the bedroom right above mine when I'm trying to go to bed. This shit, they're about to have a hopping ass mad neighbor who's going to hop up them damn stairs and be like, what the fuck are you vacuuming so much for? Hashtag asking for a friend.
All right. So yeah, man, yeah. Don't get me started on that. I am the upstairs neighbor, so I can't really complain too much.
Well, I really have no choice but to be the bottom floor neighbor. So I mean, you know, I takes it as I have to. I've started now in retaliation. I've started doing my laundry at about 4:30 in the morning. Love it. Because I am so petty like that.
Petty level 1,000 for sure on that one. All right, so
that's petty level LeBron right there.
Oh man, you know, I had somebody ask me something, and I'd like to get y'all take on this before we dive into this Blazer-Lakers series. You know, we may never end up talking about on the court shit today. But I had a guy that said something to me about what would LeBron be if the Lakers won the championship in the bubble this year. What would he be your GOAT? And I went, he'd be a dude that won 4 championships. That's about all he would. I'm sorry, he was out the GOAT conversation after loss number 6. I don't care what reasons you want to tie to it, like, you're not my GOAT with 6 wins, but that's why GOAT is a subjective and personal conversation, and I use the word my GOAT, because you're not my GOAT with 6 wins. So I was like, he would just be a dude with 4 championships. Good for him. He earned them. And gave a little thumbs up. And I want to know, I'll pose the question to y'all.
But does a championship this year really count?
I agree. I'm trying. Y'all, let me introduce you to the resident Lakers fan in the house.
One of the ones who wanted, hence why LeBron was one of the ones who wanted this the most, because he knew that was the only way right now that the Lakers might actually have a chance at winning a championship.
Oh, well, things are definitely going to be harder next year. So win it when you can, but things are definitely going to be harder next year. It's just like it's the same mentality I give to the 2015 Warriors. Like, shit got harder the next year, but take it while you can. Like, but at the end of the day, I'll be honest with you. I don't think it's a lock that the Lakers are going to win this year.
I don't either, but I do think that was
I definitely think it's up there.
Reasoning behind it was it gave him a better likelihood.
Like, yes, exactly. And that was the thing about it. Like, because I'll put it to you like this. I was one of those people that was like, you know, the Blazers catch the Lakers when they sleeping, and we could have a hell of a series here, you know, because Dame is a baller. But I was
Right.
never one of those ones that, Blazers are going to go in there and destroy the Lakers. Nah, we're talking about the Lakers, dude. No matter how much you may like or dislike Anthony Davis and LeBron, they are still Anthony Davis and LeBron. So, like, they
Yeah.
still have impact. But I was one of those people that thought it was going to be a better series than what they gave us. And that's why I
Yeah.
said what I said earlier about I truly believe that Dame's injury had a lot to do with why we didn't get a better series out of that particular series. Because aren't the Lakers up
A
3-1
thousand percent.
pretty much looking to close out tonight? Duel.
The series is over. The series ended last night.
Oh, did they play last
it
night?
ended yesterday.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
see. My bad. My bad.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's good.
So Lakers advance. All right. So is the Thunder Rocket series? That was 2-2 last time I checked, right? When they went to the
Yeah,
hiatus.
but the Rockets won today, so it's 3-2 down. No, not the Rockets. Excuse me. Yeah, no, Houston won today, so it's 3-2 Houston.
Okay. And then we got the Nuggets Jazz. They were tied up 2-2.
It's still 2-2. No. Nuggets Jazz 3-2. It was 3-1, and and the Jazz, the Nuggets won. So now it's 3-2 Jazz. So then they play a little while.
And the clip show is up.
They just beat the Mavericks. They just sent the Mavericks home.
They just sent Luca and the Mavs home.
Mm-hmm.
My boy Luca was balling, baby.
He was. He's a different kind of a beast, man. He's a real animal out there. He's something you got a game plan for, bro.
Yeah, and I think he showed that. What's funny is, and let me throw a shout out to Saint who just said what's up in the chat room. So what's up, Saint? But I think like those first couple of games, everybody was giving the Clippers all this jazz because Luka was putting it on them. And I'm sorry. To me, you can't put all that jazz on him because Luka is that special dude. Like, I just watching him play, Luka is that special dude. And kind of reminds me of what was it, 2016 when he won the unanimous one? 2016, Steph?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So like Luka kind of reminded me of that. When Steph stepped on the court that year, it just wasn't. I don't care how good of a defender he was gonna make you look like a fool. Like Steph was just in that groove. He was throwing up shots with ease and making them and doing big things. Luka was just doing big things. And not to say that he once that Mavs team comes together and is healthy, because I believe Kristaps Porzingis friggin'
He
went
left
out with injury. Yeah, he been out since like game 3, right?
Game 2, I believe he went down. Yeah.
So once that Mavs team comes together, they're gonna be something to be reckoned with. The West ain't gonna be no joke next year. The Lakers will be returning with their squad, but so will the Clippers. So will, the Warriors will be back with their core four of Wiggins or Steph, Clay, Wiggins, and Dre, and everybody wants them to take Wiseman, but I don't think they are. Everything that I'm reading, they're not high on him at all. They're more likely to take some kid out of USC at the center position than they are
Right
to take
on.
Wiseman. So like, yeah, it's looking like the Warriors with that number. Or they're talking about trading that number 2 pick. Who knows? Somebody suggested trading it to Sacramento for Beasley and for Michael Bagley Jr. or Michael Bagley the third, what is his name, and the number 12 pick.
It's no matter what they do, they're in a good position.
Yeah.
So
They got a solid squad. So the Kings are actually getting better. They put on a little show in the bubble there for people. Didn't really get them nowhere, but they put on a show. The Grizzlies, once John Morant starts rolling around, should be pretty good. Like the West is going to be monster next year. Zion and the Pelicans. Now I'm going to say this right now, Abdul. I'm going to say this to all the LeBron fans out there, all the people that respect him and think I hate LeBron. All right. If he wins a title, if he gets that number 1 seed and they dominate through the playoffs and he wins a title next year in the West, I'm not putting him in my GOAT because, like I said, too many losses to be in my GOAT. But my respect for him jumps tenfold. And
I
me
agree.
making those comments about a weak East are gone.
I agree.
If he does it next year in the same way that they
And
did it
we
this
know
year,
I do hate LeBron.
yeah, because next year the West is really going to be a beast next year. When you look at Denver and Utah, Orlando and or not Orlando, or Oklahoma City and Houston, all the teams that are in the playoffs next year, plus a bunch of teams that didn't make the playoffs this year that should be taking the next step next year.
The West is always going to be tough.
Yeah,
You have to win 50 games to make the
easy,
playoffs.
easy.
So you can be a really, really good team and miss the playoffs. And even if you take what happened just this year, I think if there's no COVID interrupting the season and everything plays out, I still think Portland gets into the playoffs. I still think they're the A seed. But not only that, you going in and you make into this bowl, they weren't a true 8th seed.
Yeah,
They were really more like a 3 or a 4. They had picked up plenty of steam before, the season was cut short. And then when they went back into the bubble, it was like they hadn't lost a step. They were really a team on fire. They dropped 2 games during the league play games. But again, close games, tough games. And just to see what they were able to do, you probably would look at Portland as probably being another 8 seed team, next year going in. But even still, again, like I said, they weren't playing like an 8 seed.
no.
So the West is long been tough, and like you said, it's going to be even tougher next year, definitely.
Monster next year. Because you got to ask yourself. I'll drop this question to you, Heather. Of the 8 teams that made the playoffs in the West, okay, and don't go with your heart, because we know that fuck LeBron is tattooed across your heart. We know that. But between the Lakers, Blazers, Rockets, Thunder, Nuggets, Jazz, Clippers, Mavericks, what is the team that you think the Warriors could end up replacing in next year's playoffs? Basically, they won't make it, but the Warriors will.
I'd say the Thunder.
Fair enough. I could see that as well. Even though Chris Paul is doing big things out there, I could see that as well.
And that pains me to say it because, in the depths of my soul, I want to say the Lakers. But I'm also a realist, and I can admit when that would be me being ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be ridiculous, and I'm going to give an honest, legit basketball answer, no heart involved, and I'd say the Thunder.
The Thunder. And Doual, who do you think that the Warriors can replace? Is OKC out for you too, or?
Yeah, I would actually have to go with the Thunder too, because they're a team. If you look at them, they're solid built, but they're also kind of teetering on rebuilding.
Yeah.
You don't know how much Chris Paul has left in the tank. He played extremely well this season. Don't get me wrong, but I think he really kind of outside. Well, yeah, I think he did the most with less this year. There's no really true superstar on that team other than him. There's no really go-to scoring shooter, so they need a lot of pieces. But what they do well is they play really good team basketball well. And like you said, with the Warriors, and then you count the teams that didn't make, that were just outside the playoffs in the bubble this year, San Antonio, Memphis, and New Orleans. Yeah, those 3 teams are going to be definitely vying for a position. So I would say, okay, they're so fragile.
Yeah.
They're a good team, but they're a fragile team. They're like one free agent, one person leaving that team from them being, at the bottom of the barrel. So yeah, I would say okay.
All right, so let's skip on over to the East. Have the Bucks and Magic made up that game yet?
Yeah, it's over. The Bucks beat them. They sent them home.
Bucks beat them. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
the Eastern Conference semis should be starting pretty later on this week, right?
It started today actually with Boston and Toronto,
Okay, so you
and
got
I think tomorrow Milwaukee and Miami play tomorrow.
all right, and then we should okay, Bucks and Heat, and then what? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so in the East, four sweeps: Toronto, Boston, Miami, and then one gentleman sweep in Milwaukee. And you want to tell me somehow the West is not stronger than the East? But anyway, we've done that the discussion already. But here were two interesting things that happened. Two people, one that I kind of saw teetering on the hot seat this season anyway, but the other I did not see coming because he's had them in the playoffs the last few years. One being Nate McMillan. I believe it was Nate McMillan in Indiana.
Yep,
And,
yep,
yeah,
yep.
and then Brett Brown. Well, the Brett Brown one I saw coming just in general because Philly has too much talent to keep falling short the way that they do. Period. Philly has too much damn talent on that squad to keep falling short the way that they do. So eventually, whether it's the coach or not, the coach is going to get blamed. It would be like if Steve Kerr kept putting up 15-win seasons with a fully healthy Warriors roster. Eventually, he's going to lose his job. If we're giving you all the chess pieces, you at least got to go out and make the playoffs. But with Brett Brown, well, not make the playoffs, but with that much talent, at least make the conference finals or the NBA finals once. I understood. But Nate McMillan, I didn't. Because I thought he did a lot with not that much, considering he lost Victor Oladipo like was that early last year for the whole year, or was that the year before?
It was mid-season.
Yeah.
Just after the All-Star break.
And still managed to guide that squad into the playoffs as a 4 seed. So, I thought he was doing a damn good job, but I guess they're just tired of first round for being bounced in the first round.
Well, the difference between the two is, you look up top, right? Well, Indiana has put together a team that is not as talented, a little bit more cohesive, and there's a little bit more team, chemistry. Players have assigned roles, and they play those roles and perform those roles at a high clip, at a high level. So that's why they're consistently good. But the fact that they don't have a real true superstar, a real true go-to guy, kind of puts them, 5 seed in the East in that middle zone.
Yeah.
Whereas you look at Philadelphia, they put together a roster, of extreme talent. With Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, and then adding Horford to that lineup, and having Jimmy Butler last year. So they really, they have some talent. The talent's just not playing to its full potential. You have guys that are, don't get me wrong, that are excelling, like a Tobias Harris, and I forget. They got about 2 or 3 guys on that team that are playing, they're excelling their potential. But it's not just a cohesive unit. The chemistry isn't always there. And it's a lot of holes in the roster. Embiid isn't really a true low block 5 guy, whereas Al Horford is. You know what I'm saying? But, you got one guy coming off the bench, and you got one guy starting because you can't play them together because of the dynamic. And then you couple that with a point guard who can't shoot. Don't get me wrong, exceptional IQ, you know what I'm saying, and exceptional ability, on the floor. But he can't shoot, so that limits him.
Yeah.
You can't do certain things. You can't spread the floor. You can't, it's just, you're limited within your offense. So, with them making it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, I think that it, raised the expectations on what this team was and what they could be. And then, with everything that happened this year and then the first round, sweep by, and don't get me wrong, that is not no ordinary Boston team. That is a really, really good Boston team.
Right?
That is a Boston team. That is a Boston team that was actually supposed to beat that Toronto team last year and get in the finals. As a Boston team that actually could have been in the finals 2 years before that, until, but they were so young, and they met a veteran LeBron and Cleveland Cavs team that, so that's a really, really good Boston team.
Yeah.
Both those coaches could have kept their jobs, could have been given another chance, but at the same time, with Brett Brown is 50-50. You can stay there and kind of maybe stay where you're at, possibly another Eastern Conference Finals appearance, or you can, kind of break it up now, start to rebuild, a light rebuild, replace and remove some pieces and see if you can make it further. But with Indiana, I guess they were feeling like, you can't blame Nate McMillan, because, again, they're consistent and consistently good, and they need a superstar.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that that they're good enough to put themselves far enough behind in the draft to not be able to get that superstar. And then losing Paul George a couple of years ago, it's been tough to find them. And Oladipo is just not there yet.
Right.
So, they could have kept Nate, and they could have continued to build that young roster and continue to grow and get further. But, bringing in a new coach, new voice, new blood, they figure they'll go further with that. So, it's 50-50 for both, but that's the way the game goes.
Now, Heather, I'm going to throw a different subject at you. Reading some reports through NBC, Bay Area and all that, there was a guy that wrote an article that caught my interest, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it. And it involves the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, this report has been shut down, but let's play fantasy owner. There was somebody that suggested that the Warriors should potentially trade the number 2 pick and maybe Andrew Wiggins to the 76ers for either Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons. I nixed the idea of Ben Simmons immediately. So let's go with a look at Joel Embiid and say, do you think that would be a good fit? Do you think losing Wiggins and gaining Embiid would be a good fit for that Warriors squad? And then, Doual, you can follow her with your thoughts on it as well. Heather? Hello? Hello? Abdul?
I'm here.
Yeah? Heather? Did we lose Heather?
Probably.
It looks like it.
I'll answer the question, though. That the Warriors, with the number 2 pick, which is that trading for Embiid is, you might as well just draft James Wiseman.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna keep it real with you if that's what you're gonna do. Because if you take that pick and you trade for Embiid, now you add another huge contract, right? And you're getting a big that is not as athletic and is not gonna run the floor like that. Yeah. Now, where he does fit your system is he's a stretch 5, and he can make sure that your 5-out offense runs smoothly, with a big that can shoot. But at the same time, though, you need a low post presence. They need somebody who can score inside. So
right.
That doesn't make much sense to me, especially considering the fact that, if you trade for Embiid, you're adding another contract in which you already got Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. You got to pay Draymond.
Yeah. You
got to. You kept him. You got to pay him now when his contract is up. So if you add Embiid as another, that's going to limit them, in terms of bench and adding, other free agents and so on and so forth. So I just don't. If you trade the pick, that's a good idea, but you also have to make the right trade for the right player to fill out your roster and complement your other guys in the right way.
Would you say maybe the guy that plays for the number 1 team in the East, if they could work out a trade for, say, Wiggins, Pascal, and the number 2 pick for the big man, Mr. Giannis?
He fits, right? He fits. Don't get me wrong. Athletic, run the floor, and you don't really necessarily need him to shoot, which is not, one of his strengths anyway. But the fact that, again, the problem is you've already got Curry and Klay on max deals. Right. You got to put them on max deals. And you got Draymond, who may not get the max, but he's going to get a nice little chunk.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So if you add a Giannis, who's going to be an upcoming free agent soon, you're adding another super max contract.
Right.
So, so again, you're going to ask Klay to take another pay cut. You're going to ask Draymond to continue to take that pay cut. So it's all about how they, again, good idea, but how do you manage the money? Who gets the two super maxes? Who gets the maxes, and then how do you fill out the bench?
Yeah.
You're gonna need that depth because you can't ride those guys for 82 games and then another 16 wins in the playoffs.
Well,
So
my thing is this. Here's what I would like to see the Warriors do. Okay, and I'm waiting to hear back from Heather. I messaged her. I think her phone may have died or something like that. But where I'm looking at is like this. This is what I would like to see the Warriors do this offseason. They've got a $17 million trade exemption. Okay? Go after, and this is a guy from the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't believe he's signed an extension. Go after a Robin Lopez. Either via trade or sign him in the offseason. I believe he's a free agent after this year. Pick somebody like him up. Pick up a Marc Gasol, just in free agency. You have a $17 million, whatchamacallit. Go get yourself an older guy who can contribute that'll give Looney, basically allow Looney to be what JaVale McGee was to Andrew Bogut. Gasol goes in there and starts. Gives us a good 18 to 20 minutes a game, but the bulk of the load at center is truly carried by Looney. He just doesn't start. You feel what I'm saying? Basically what was going to happen with DeMarcus Cousins last year if he had managed to stay healthy. He was going to start, maybe run a good 20, 30 minutes, but that Looney and them boys are going to come in and spell him. You got Pascal to be able to spell Draymond. Wiggins, Clay, and whatchamacallit, you already got Jacob Evans. You go out and they were talking about them picking up that kid from Dayton, Obi Toppin, in the draft. Keep the number 2 pick him in the draft. Now you have your guy to spell Jacob. I believe Jacob Evans. Did he get traded, or is he still playing for them? But they had a couple of young guards that I like this year.
I think he's still there.
Yeah, I think he's still there. You know what I'm saying? But he could play both positions, and you could use him to spell both Clay and Steph, and Kai Bowman too.
Yeah.
He was another one. So I'm like, guys, and we both know like Steph and Clay are going to be playing at least 35 to 38 minutes a game, maybe 30 probably for Steph with his injuries and stuff. So you don't really need somebody who's going to be out there for the bulk of the game. You need somebody who's going to be out there, give you 5, 10 solid minutes at the point, or maybe 10, 15 solid minutes at the 2. So I would like to see them do that. Go out and sign a veteran center instead of drafting Wiseman. Draft another young small forward. You could even run Wiggins out the 2 at times and run Toppin out the 3. And so it's just one of these type of things where I just don't see where trading the number 2 pick, unless it was for somebody like Giannis, would do us any good. And then it puts us right back in the position where we were, where we basically got to go out and get a bunch of mercs on our bench to try to fill out our bench, instead of using our bench as a place to keep developing players that are going to develop to keep the team winning. I think that's something that San Antonio did that's vastly overlooked. Is San Antonio kept restocking their bench with young cats who were being groomed to take the place of the older cats that were the cats that were getting older throughout the on the team. And that's what the Warriors need to be doing with their thing, is fill it with a couple of good veterans and then fill in the blanks with a bunch of young cats who are going to grow to fill in the spots of your top players right now, your Steph Currys, your Klay Thompsons, and take players that you can develop into that, because they're not going to be playing for the next 3, 4, 5 years. They're not really going to be starting unless Steph or Klay gets hurt, gets a major injury. They're not really going to be playing much as far as starting over the next few years.
Yeah.
So, but I'll actually take that one. Oh, her phone died. Let me ask her if she wants me to call her back in. But like with the 49ers, they just locked up George Kittle. They know that within the next 3 years, they're going to have to lock up Nick Bosa and start working on an extension with him. They're aware of that, and that's why a lot of what they're doing right now when they're signing players is like 1-year players at like, $2-3 million a year. They're not going after any of the big name guys. Like, what I'm saying, the Niners never took a shot at Antonio Brown. They never took a shot at Dez Bryant. Because these guys want 14, 15 million a year, and they're not trying to spend that type of money when they feel like they've already got their number one receiver in house in Deebo Samuel. So the
Well, they
Warriors,
did a good job of drafting well and bringing in young guys.
bringing a lot of young guys. Man, they've got a running back room that some would die for, dude. McKinnon, Coleman, Mozart, Jeff Wilson Jr. Man. So they're looking to try to do the same thing. I've heard good things about that kid Ayuk that they took early in the first round with the draft pick or that they took late in the first round. I've heard great things about the kid Kinlaw. Watch out. It's going to be a season with no fans, but don't expect the 49ers to fall off too much. Don't expect that Super Bowl hangover to be too bad. But other than that, back to the NBA. Who you got going to the Eastern Conference Finals? Because we'll be back in a couple of weeks to talk about the NBA Finals. But who you got going to the Eastern Conference Finals?
That's a tough one, but it's going to come down to Boston and Milwaukee.
You think so?
Yeah, and I don't know if Milwaukee is playing well enough right now. They're gonna struggle with Miami. So I'm not even sure they'll get past Miami. The way Miami is built and the way they play, yeah, they're probably the most dangerous team on the team.
All right.
I would say Milwaukee's the contender. I would say Boston is the best team on the East.
Okay.
But I would say that Miami is the most dangerous team out the East. And so they're gonna give Milwaukee fit. They're gonna give Giannis fit. They're gonna play defense. So it's tough for me to see Milwaukee get past Miami at this point. But again, I do like Boston. The way they came out, took care of business today against Toronto. They really kind of make them look like a team that needs Kawhi Leonard. And again, Boston is a young team, equipped, built to go the distance. So I think they're the best team right now in the East. So I can definitely see them in the finals. But who they play, whether it's Milwaukee or Miami, is going to determine whether or not they get into the finals. But if they see Miami, that's going to be a Miami team that's hot, a Miami team that's confident, a veteran Miami team, that's going to be looking to really, make some noise and upset some people. Well coached, fiercely led, so you can't sleep on them. But I guess if I had to pick one, I would say Boston. Honestly,
I can see it. Boston's playing well enough right now. But what's weird is, dude, here we go with Boston again, dude. Isn't Hayward down for the playoffs?
Yeah, he is.
What is it with them losing their star players and all of a sudden getting better?
Because he's a piece of the system. He's not the whole system.
For sure.
You look at what Kemba Walker does. You look at what Jaylen Brown does. You look at what Marcus Smart does. Those three right there, can handle it. Handle missing. Gordon Hayward going down only means they get more minutes and more opportunities.
Right.
And the same goes well for Jason Tatum. So those four guys right there are going to give you fits. And then not only that, but the way they play and such a well-coached team. Their eighth and their ninth guy is going to come in and going to contribute and give you minutes. He may not score 10 to 15 points, but it's going to be the little things. That eighth guy, that ninth guy may cause 2 or 3 key turnovers. He may knock down 2 or 3 key shots, because they play so well. Ball moves, players move, they work well as a unit on defense. So, and that really showed today. They came in with a game plan for Toronto, and they executed well.
Yeah.
So
Toronto was a hot team, a really good team right now too.
And again, same thing. Not a real true superstar, but a lot of guys playing above their potential. You know, young guys, hungry guys. You know, a championship team. It's a team that still won the championship. You know, and they're looking to prove something. You know, they're looking to prove that we don't need that superstar, that Kawhi Leonard, you know, to carry us, so to speak. But we did. It was a team effort.
Boston may show them that they do. No, I'm messing with you.
Yeah, you know, so,
I hate to say
you really got two teams that's basically a mirror image of each other.
Yeah.
You know, it's just that the one team has a guy that's becoming a superstar, and the other team has a guy they just lost a superstar.
Right.
You know, so yeah.
All right. Well, as far as unless I'm wrong, I'm almost 100% sure that you see the Lakers coming out the West. So I know you know it won't be an easy road, but
well, I mean, you look at the two favorites. You look at Milwaukee and you look at the Lakers. You know, these are the two teams that are supposed to, you know, meet in the finals.
Yeah.
But you look at the road they have to take. Again, Lakers in the first round, you know, that they got a Portland team that was ranked 8th. Yep. But this was a team that came in, they were playing more like a 3 or a 4, you know, something like that. So, and in that first game, they showed them, like, if you don't come to play, the Lakers haven't been playing, they have not played good basketball for the entire bubble. Yep. They've had 1 or 2 good games. And I think in the Portland series, that was pretty much their warm up. You know, they had to play a real tough team, but playing in that playoff atmosphere. You know, what they had to do, they had to make adjustments.
Yep.
And our first game exposed them. If we just go out here and just play, you know, we don't get whooped. You know,
it's playoff basketball.
Portland came to play that night. Yeah, it's playoff basketball, but it was the adjustments, the way they were able to adjust in game 2, play more of a defensively sound game. You know, and in game 3, you'll notice when they jumped up to that big lead, defensively, the first thing that they did, the first thing that they keyed in on was Damian Lillard. You know, and they denied him the ball. So what they wanted to do, you know, from the way I was looking at it, they wanted to take him out of rhythm early.
Yeah. And
get him into a mode of just settling, you know, which can become easy because you got a McCollum who's hot, right? So let him handle the ball and bring it up. They weren't let Lillard bring the ball up. They were denying him full court. Yeah. They don't really want him to get in rhythm because he was torching them, you know. So they really did a good job of keying in on him, you know, in that third game, and for them it was just all about the adjustment. Now, you take that and you go into the next round where they play the winner of this OKC and Houston series, you know, and if it's OKC is playing hot, they're playing with a chip on their shoulder, and it's going to take more than just adjustments, right, if it's OKC. If it's Houston, like everybody, like it's looking like it's getting ready to be, you're talking about a team that's on fire. That's shooting the ball well, that's running up and down the floor, that's playing really good basketball, much like Portland. And if this team doesn't take them seriously in game 1, you know, they're not going to have an opportunity, possibly, in a game 2 decide. Exactly. They're not going to have it. They're going to make the adjustments, but again, it's going to take more than just adjustments. Yeah. You're going to have to play a full 4 quarters of basketball to beat Houston. But a full all-out effort. You got Harden playing out of his mind. You got Westbrook that's come back. He's playing at 100 miles an hour. You know, and then you've got the role players who accepted their roles and they're playing them, you know, above their ability, you know, to the maximum and beyond of their potential. They're playing a team that's looking to win the championship. Yeah. You know, and then after that, you know, you've got either the Clippers, you know, who everyone is considered, you know, and being a team that could take the Lakers down, or the Jazz, another team playing out of their mind. Donovan Mitchell is playing, you know, like a video game. He's not even human now. You know, and again, the pieces around them. So the road to the finals is not going to be tough. Yeah. And to this point, the Lakers have not played good basketball. They've played some good games, you know, but they haven't put together a good stretch. Right. You know, of game 1, even if it's a loss, you know, 4, 5, 6 good games, put them together, string them together, and that's what it's going to take. It's going to take 6 really exceptional performances to beat Houston. It's going to take 6 or 7 really exceptional performances to beat the Clippers or to beat the Jazz, to beat the teams that they're getting ready to face. And to this point, they haven't put that stretch together yet. Games 3 and 4 against Portland were good, but that was just a glimpse into what they should have been doing the entire bubble. And I know it's tough. I hate to down the team like that because I know it's the bubble and it's tough and so on and so forth. But this is what's expected of you. You're expected to dominate. You're expected to go in with the roster that you have, and that's built. So we'll see.
Amen. 100%. All right, so y'all. So we're gonna end it on that. And we'll come back, like I said, in a couple weeks to talk a little NBA Finals and also to take a deeper look at the MLB season. Hopefully, we won't have as much injustice to speak on, and we can get back to talking sports. Yeah, and like I said, a couple of weeks we'll be back because I miss having this particular pulpit to scream from. So hope you guys have enjoyed. Heather, we missed you for the rest of the show. Sorry your phone died, but we'll have you back in a couple of weeks and we'll do it again. So, Doual, any last words for the people?
Good night, people.